What's going on, everybody, and welcome back into the Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football channel. Labor Day weekend, drafts are in full swing. The NFL season just around the corner with the kickoff Thursday night between the Lions and the Chiefs. Make sure you hit subscribe to this channel for all sorts of fantasy content as the season unfolds. We're right toward the end of our draft content. We've got lots of mock drafts on the channel. If you haven't done your draft yet, scroll through the Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football channel. Find the mock draft that best fits what you're doing in your league so you can find ways to prepare. We have done a 10-team mock draft, PPR from the 10 spot, from the turn. But the way that panned out, with the video getting several thousand views and a lot of people saying, what are you doing drafting Patrick Mahomes at the 1.10? I said, well, I wanted to demonstrate something that I think is a very plausible plot point, something you should be looking for in a 10-team league rather than a 12 or a 14-person league. 10's more shallow. And so in order to stand out, you've got to do so at the onesie positions, which are quarterback and wide receiver. No, they're not. Quarterback and tight end. I've had this habit when I do these videos of just saying wide receiver when I can't think of what I'm trying to say. Quarterback and tight end are the onesie positions, and you want to be strong and have an advantage over your league mates in those when you're in a 10-person league, because everybody's going to have great running backs and wide receivers. It's just the board is so deep. There's no way to be lean at those spots in a 10-person league. You're going to get to draft 2 or 3 or 4 of them within the first 6 rounds, and it's just going to be fantastic. No matter who you take, you're probably going to be fine. So quarterback and tight end are really the positions that I find really important to prioritize. But because people didn't like it when I took Patrick Mahomes at the 1.10, I said, okay, I'm going to show you an example where I don't take a quarterback with the first lap through the turn, rounds 1 and 2. And I want to show you what probably happens to the quarterback position, and then I'll talk about whether or not I'm okay with it. But here at the 1.10, we've got plenty of options here on the board. Cooper Kupp goes 1.9, by the way. I'm not sure that's going to happen in real life. With the hamstring injury this weekend, you may see Cooper Kupp fall into the second round. I think that is a distinct possibility if folks are paying attention. Here at the turn, I'm going to reach a little bit when it comes to one of the wide receivers that I'm going to take here. I could totally go Nick Chubb, but I'm going to try to load up at wide receiver because this is a full PPR setting. So we're going to go CeeDee Lamb, and we're going to go amon-ra St. Brown. St. Brown, one of the targets that I really like. Did I overdraft him a little bit? Perhaps, but he wasn't making it back to me at the 3.10. So you get your guys. We see Mahomes go at the 2.6, which is 7 picks later than I took him the first time I did this mock draft. But check this out. Josh Allen goes at the 2.9 and Jalen Hurts at the 3.3. Those are the only quarterbacks that go before I'm up at the next turn, the 3-4 turn on the back half of this draft. But I think those are the 3 elite quarterbacks this year in fantasy football. So if you want a crack at one of those guys and you happen to be on the turn, guess what? You got to take him. So there is a good quarterback here that I'm going to take on this turn because I do preach being robust at the position if you possibly can be. And with Mark Andrews going at the 3.4, I'm not taking a tight end just yet. Although Andrews, if he goes to the 3.10, I would be smashing the button so hard it would break my wrist. But because he's already gone, we're going to take the guy that throws him the football, Lamar Jackson. We feel like we're pretty good, right? Former MVP, has rushing upside, the ability to throw the football all over the field. A lot of targets to throw to this year. Not just Mark Andrews, but Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, maybe Rashad Bateman. We'll see what his health looks like. So we feel pretty good about Lamar Jackson at 3.10. Again, we're trying to get robust at the positions of quarterback and tight end because we know that everybody's going to have great running backs and wide receivers in such a shallow 10-team league. So we want to make sure that we have an advantage over somebody somewhere. Unfortunately, I just don't think the value is here at the top of the 4th round to attack the tight end position. So I'm going to have to let that go for another round at least. We'll see what it looks like when we get back to the next turn. And then we're going to have to decide we're going wide receiver again. Because if you take a look at our roster, I probably should have had that up. We do have one flex spot that we can play with. Running back is not all too exciting to me at this point, but I am going to go Travis Etienne here. Partially because it's a guy that I don't have a lot of shares of, and it's fun to draft him. He's a good player. But the reason I don't go Jahmyr Gibbs is because I already have a Detroit Lion on my team in amon-ra St. Brown. So we're going to take Etienne, who I have ranked one spot behind Gibbs in my running back rankings, but I'm okay with splitting it up a little bit to make sure that I don't get overloaded with just one NFL offense. In my first 4 rounds, to have 2 Lions would be a little bit overkill in my opinion. Keenan Allen going to 4.3. I don't know what Team 8 is doing. I have no idea. That probably doesn't happen in a real league unless it's a truly soft home league that a guy would take 5 wide receivers when you can only start 3 in this league format. But here we are. Keenan Allen, though, if I wanted to have filled my flex, would have been my pick here at the 4.1. But I went ETN because I wanted to lock in a solid running back, and I feel decent about that. But I would have loved to have had Keenan Allen in my flex. If I had to do over again, I might have made that change. But that's okay. We feel pretty good about where we are with Lamb and Amon-Ra starting out. But we would like to have one more wide receiver with some really good upside. I feel like Christian Watson could be that guy. We don't have to consider the quarterback position, although Justin Fields falling to the 5.10 is something to keep an eye on. If that actually happens in a real draft, I'm thinking, man, why did I take Lamar Jackson? I just don't think you usually are going to see that in a 10-team league, but I could be wrong. Justin Fields at the 5.10 would be a smash. I would recommend it if you hadn't taken your quarterback yet. Justin Herbert would be an okay pick there. Trevor Lawrence. I'm interested to see if the rest of those top 7 quarterbacks go in round 6 and 7. Christian Watson was the pick that I made to fill my flex because I'm looking for extreme upside because I know if he doesn't pan out, I'm going to have guys on my bench who will. So never settle for a floor when you're drafting in a 10-person league. That's my main piece of advice is go for ceiling every single time because if a guy fails, doesn't matter. You're going to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 guys on your bench that could just as easily fill in that flex spot. So take a shot. Do something bold. It'll be okay. Speaking of doing something bold, I've got a running back position to think about. I've got the tight end position to think about. I am going to go ahead and lock in Darren Waller here. It's a guy that I have not drafted much of, any of. I think that's the first time I've clicked his name all August and September draft season. However, in this format, it's a benefit. If you can find a guy that could be a target leader on his team at the tight end position, worth taking a shot on. Darren Waller could very well be that for the New York Giants. Kyle Pitts going in the 7th, nice value. He wouldn't have gotten back to me at the 7.10, so I didn't miss out anything there. And we don't really know that he's going to be an advantage necessarily if the Falcons don't throw the ball too much. But in terms of the Giants, you got Jalen Hyatt. I think Darius Slayton's back with the Giants, but just not a lot in terms of pass catchers behind, honestly, Saquon Barkley. Probably gets a ton of targets for that team. But Darren Waller could be a match made in heaven with Daniel Jones. So at the 6th round, I think it's a pretty good value to take Waller. I am worried about his 2022, just injury-riddled, but maybe he was also a little bit disgruntled with the Raiders and so wasn't necessarily incentivized to try to work through too many of those injuries. I think he could have a rebound season with the Giants, so I like that pick. In a 10-team league, I am totally cool with making sure I'm robust at every position that I can be in my starting lineup. Now we're going to take a look at wide receivers and running backs that are available. Boy, Pickens and Lockett, man. I'm going to take a shot on Pickens here. Lockett would have been a great pick as well. Could have considered some of the rookies, Smith and Jigba or Addison. But doesn't it feel like George Pickens and Christian Watson are kind of the same player? Young quarterbacks, you've got Jordan Love and Kenny Pickett throwing to them, but just freak athletes, big-bodied receivers that can go up and get it, can make plays downfield, freakish speed for both of these guys. Raw materials to work with, and maybe a breakout's coming for both. That's exactly what I want because I only need one of them to hit to fill this flex. Doesn't matter which one it is. I would like for them to be able to decide it within the early portion of the season so that I am ready to go by the time the playoffs arrive, fantasy playoffs. But I love having 2 guys who could emerge and beat their ADP. Yeah, Tyler Lockett could beat his ADP, but he's also 30 years old. You've got Smith and Jigba there, maybe taking away some of the opportunities. So I like going for the youth in a 10-team format. We're going to reach down the board a little bit and take Javonte Williams in the 6th round. It's a reach, without a doubt. But when you consider we've already got a quality bench wide receiver, we filled the rest of our lineup, we just needed a running back. Take a look. Kamara, suspension, I'm not entirely sure. I think I prefer Javonte Williams. Dalvin Cook, I definitely prefer Javonte Williams because Dalvin Cook I don't think is going to get better as the year goes along. Breece Hall is going to get better as the year goes along, which means Dalvin Cook's role is going to decrease. James Conner, same thing. Maybe not in terms of role, but that's a tanking team. I don't want anything to do with the Arizona offense if I can avoid it. Pacheco is going to have to deal with McKinnon always taking the passing down, so limiting his success in PPR. Rashad White. Again, we don't want any pieces of that offense. This is the RBZ zone right here. It's not rounds 4 through 7 or 4 through 8 like it usually is in fantasy football. The RBZ zone is 6.3 to, or what is this? Around 8.3 to 8.8 in a 10-team league. because Dalvin Cook, James Conner, Isaiah Pacheco, and Rachaad White, I want nothing to do with. I like Montgomery, but I had a Lion already. Don't really care about Jamal Williams. James Cook, I'm a little bit sad that he didn't fall to me. But you know who did is Jahan Dotson. So that's an instant click for me as I'm continuing to add an archetype of wide receiver. In a 10-team league, I'm shooting for pure, unadulterated upside with every single pick. At this point, I could see Watson, Pickens, or Dotson, any one of the three, have a relatively equal chance of going hamburglar this season with a young, relatively inexperienced quarterback. But if that quarterback makes the leap, the wide receiver is likely to be part of the reason. So I am thrilled to have those guys all vying for a flex spot on my lineup. Etienne and Javonte Williams, a little bit light in terms of the running back room. Oh, boy. Yeah, this is kind of a zero RB build. Or a hero, if Etienne qualifies as a hero for your RB room. Zach Charbonnet is a guy that I'd be targeting in PPR. I don't know if he's going to make it back to me. So we're just going to really double down on the zero RB and go Gabe Davis. Because, look, we got 2 running backs. I'm sure it'll be fine. But Gabe Davis, man, the value is just too good this late in the draft. I do this on purpose because I want to have now 4 guys who could potentially be studs in my lineup at wide receiver. And if any of them truly reach their potential, you might have a wide receiver 1 caliber player in your flex. A top 10 to 12 wide receiver. So if I'm able to come up with one of these guys, Christian Watson, George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, Gabe Davis, take a step forward for fantasy, I feel really good. And I could probably trade the ones who are just kind of middle of the pack, but not totally emerging to the extent that I need, because a lot of teams could use those guys. I went CeeDee Lamb, amon-ra, St. Brown in the early rounds, so I don't really need wide receiver the way other rosters might. But what I do need is running backs. Fortunately, Zach Charbonnet fell to us, and we can take a shot on one more running back to wrap up this draft. And maybe in a 10-team league, you'll have a deeper bench to work with, but for now, we just have the spots that we have here. Tank Bigsby, under consideration. Devon Achane, certainly under consideration. Jaylen Warren would be under consideration. But when I look at the 3 of those guys, Warren, even if he's more talented than Najee Harris, is not going to totally overtake a workhorse role from Najee. Tank Bigsby, same thing when it comes to Travis Etienne, although I have Etienne actually on my team. But I'm not looking to handcuff my running backs in a 10-team league. I'm looking to take as many shots as I can at, what do we call it? Pure, unadulterated upside. In this spot in the draft, that is Devon Achane. Jeff Wilson, beginning the year on IR. Raheem Mostert is 100 years old. Devon Achane is an explosive young player who, yes, is dealing with a little bit of an injury, but if things should break his direction, the upside is RB10 to RB15. I think that's possible in the way that Miami uses its running backs. I think he could have a really successful season if he gets the opportunity. So even though we really neglected the running back position outside of Etienne in the 4th, we get Javonte in the 8th, which is perfectly fine value. Charbonnet in the 11th, Achane in the 12th. We only need 4 because we're only going to play 2. It's a PPR league, so we're definitely putting a wide receiver in our flex. And with Lamb and amon-ra St. Brown, I don't think either of those guys are leaving the lineup, which just leaves, look at this just pure upside that we have in Watson, Pickens, Dotson, Gabe Davis. Gabe's the number 2 wide receiver for his team, so maybe not him. A little longer odds, but I like the talent. If Buffalo ends up just having a great passing season through Josh Allen, they can feed Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs in that passing offense. Jahan Dotson, the reason I like him is I think he could take Terry McLaurin and kind of put Terry in the back seat. Jahan Dotson could be the wide receiver 1 for Washington, especially with the connection with Sam Howell, if that's something that continues to grow. And McLaurin has always kind of been banged up here and there, so maybe if he's not on the field, that connection with the young quarterback doesn't grow the way that it might for Jahan Dotson. Pickens, I think he's the one with Pittsburgh, and I don't think there's any question that Christian Watson is the one for Green Bay. So we're betting on offenses in that case that we don't think are as robust, not necessarily going to be top 10 or 12 offenses in Green Bay or Pittsburgh, but if it should happen that Kenny Pickett or Jordan Love take a step forward, and that is a 12 to 15th ranked offense, I bet the wide receiver 1 in those offenses is going to be elite. Now, it might not be Pickens. It might be Deontay Johnson in Pittsburgh. In Green Bay, I really don't see how it wouldn't be Christian Watson. They've got Romeo Doubs. They've got Jaden, whatever the hell his name is. Why can't I think of the kid's last name? Jaden whatever. Am I really going to make myself Google this while I do it? You guys are already screaming at your Jaden Reed. Screaming at your video. But yeah, that's what it is. Jaden Reed. But anyway, I think Christian Watson's going to be the number 1 there. And And that's just going to be the way that goes. What do you think about this draft, though? I did what everybody wanted. I didn't take a quarterback in the first round. I think a lot of people had an issue with it being Mahomes because Mahomes doesn't have the upside rushing-wise as Hurts and Allen. I don't care. Mahomes is my QB1 this season. If I'm taking a quarterback first, it's going to be him. I'll eat those words if he doesn't score QB1 numbers, but I bet he leads the league in passing touchdowns. Like, he's still Patrick Mahomes. He's still the guy that I'm riding with. From a consistency standpoint, I just don't think there's anybody better. But I do like being able to get an elite guy with rushing upside like Lamar Jackson in the third. So we pretty much just loaded up at wide receiver. We got just enough at running back to try and fill our 2 spots. We know the flex is going to be a wide receiver. And if you play in a 10-team league with a second flex, do the exact same thing. Because I still think you've got enough upside in wide receivers here to be able to roster, not only roster, but put one of these guys like Pickens, Dotson, or Gabe Davis in your weekly lineup. And we don't need a backup quarterback or a backup tight end because we drafted 2 guys that we expect to be every week plays for us at those positions. So we don't have to store anybody on our bench. We can just get really, really loaded at wide receiver and running back. Do you like this 10-team draft that I did better than the one that I did a few weeks ago where everybody got mad and said, don't draft Patrick Mahomes, you're crazy? I still stand by that draft. I could win with that draft. But this one might be even a little bit better. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you hit subscribe on this channel, like on this video, and comment along with the fantasy football content you'd like to see next from the Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.